In this week's parsha is the source of all the halachas in Hilchas Mikvah. Very short posuk. A posuk that has only 5 words. Ach mayon uboyer mikveh mayim. From these words, Chazal and Torah's Kohanim learn all the halachas of Mikvah. However, one halacha is not in this week's parsha, but rather in Parshas Mitzorah. Parshas Mitzorah, Tezvav, Tezayin. Ve'ishki teitzim emen shichva zora. Ve'rochetz b'mayim es kol besora ve'tomad ha'orev. Ve'rochetz b'mayim es kol besora, the Gemara Darshans, Edom and Avdalad, and another sources in Shas. Mayim shekol gufay oilo bohein, ve'kamehem, amol amem b'roim shorashamas ve'shiur ha'chachomim, mem so, arba'am so. So the Gemara says, Mayim shekol gufay oilo behem, enough water to cover his entire body. And how much is that? Amol amem b'roim shorashamas shiur ha'chachomim arba'am so. Is the shir arba'am so min ha'Torah min d'Rabbanan? That's a mechloikes, obviously. Many Rishonim clearly say arba'am so is min ha'Torah. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, like other shiurim. 3 sources in Shas. Erev and Avdalat, Sukkot of Hey, Brochas Memalav, the Gemara says, Shiurim halacha l'Moshe Sinai. And Minchas Oshor, Devorim Simen Yud Gimel, I have a very lengthy discussion about the concept of shiurim. Be'ikar Shita say Ushalmi. Shalmi seems to say it's the Rabbanan, but today we're not discussing the broader concept of shiurim, only Shiur Mikvah. So the Ravid and Balei HaNefesh Sharamayim Beis Yud Beis, and once again Gimel Beis, the Ravid clearly says, Arba'am so is min ha'Torah. Same we find in Rashba, Torah Sabayis. Torah Sabayis also has a section which is called Sharamayim, just like Balei HaNefesh from the Ravid. Sharamayim, Torah Sabayis, Gimel Beis. Rashba writes, Kiblu Mesinai, Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, the Shiur of Memso. Kach mashma b'divrei Rashi p'sochim yud zayim in the base Shuvas Harivash. I don't recall Rish Tzadik Dalad or Shin Tzadik Dalad, but one of the two in Shuvas Harivash. He also says Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, Memso min ha'Torah, and that is also in Shuvas Hatashbetz Chelek Aleph Simen Yud Zayin. If Memso is min ha'Torah, obviously it's Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, k'moshe kozvo Rashbo v'ha'Rivash. However, the Yeshuas Yaakov was a gavaldige ilum. The Yeshuas Yaakov has a dikduk niflo in the Lashon of the Pasuk. And he writes, this is how Chazal knew Memsos min ha'Torah. V'rochetz b'mayim es kol besorei. That's unusual language. It would be more fitting to say v'rochetz es kol besorei b'mayim, not v'rochetz b'mayim es kol besorei. Because 3 psukim earlier, when we're dealing with a zav, Pasuk Yud Gimel, Perik Tezvav, the Pasuk says, V'chiyiter azav mezoiva v'sofa lo yishiv asyomim l'tarosa v'chibes begodov v'rochatz b'soroi b'mayim chayim v'tohar. So why by the zav, the Pasuk says, V'rochatz b'soroi b'mayim chayim, and by Balkeri, it's the other way around, V'rochatz b'mayim, it's called b'soroi. Shus Yaakov says, this unusual language, V'rochatz b'mayim, means mayim yeduim, Mayim Misuyomim, Mayim that have a certain shiur, and that is Arba'am so. However, Azav needs Mayim Chaim. Mayim Chaim is a Mayon. By Mayon there is no din of Arba'am so. You don't need Arba'am so, and that is why by Zav the Pasuk says, V'rochatz b'soroi b'mayim. However, by Melkeri that needs a mikvah Arba'am so, the Pasuk is V'rochatz b'mayim es kol b'soroi. Beautiful. However, unnecessary. We don't dash in new drushes that we don't find in Chazal, and the Rashba, the Rivash clearly say, Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. However, the Bach in Yoredei Kufchov says, Arba'am so is midrabanon. All Dina Mekvos is in Reish Aleph. Kufchov is Tfilas Kelim. The Bach, Kufchov says, the Shia Memso is on midrabanon, and he quotes that from the Rosh, Saf Siman Aleph, Hilchas Mikvah. Rash, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph, Mesechet Mikvah. Smag, Mrs. Reish Memches, Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina, Brochas, Mem Aleph, Omed Aleph. The Bach does only brings few of these sources, but I fill them in. All these Rishonim say, Midrabanan. That is also the opinion of the Levush in Reish Aleph, Sif Aleph. However comes along the Chazon Ish, Yoredei Kuf Mem Aleph, and the Chazon Ish says, the Bach is a mistake. All these Rishonim are dealing only with Tfilas Kalim, and Tfilas Kalim doesn't need Arbom, so Elam Rabbonon, but Tfilas Odom, Ben Ish, Ben Isha, always need Memso Mena Torah. And before the Chazon Ish, the same argument is made by the Prima Godim, Orachaim Kuf Nun Tes Mishbet Sois Yud Ches, and before the Prima Godim, Divrei Emes, Rabbi Yitzchok Bachar David, was one of the greatest Sephardi Gedolim going back almost 300 years. Kudres HaMikvah, Shalas Shuvas Divrei Emes, Daf Nun Hey Medapei HaSefer, and they say, regarding Tfilas Sodom, everyone agrees, Mem Sos Men Torah. Those are the Shonim that say it's Medarabonon, and it's only regarding Tfilas Kalim. And to me, it's a pele that the Orcha Shulchan, Sif Yud Reish Aleph, maintains that Mem Sos Medarabonon, and he's Mekel Lahalocha Beisveikis, because Sveike Darabonon Lakula. But I think the Chazon Ish, Chasam Soifer, Divrei Emes are right. Memsa ba'odam is menatoira, only ba'kelim it's the Rabbonim. Now an interesting phenomenon. Some Soifer quotes the Bach and the Taz say that Memsa was Rabbonim. There is no such a Taz. Neither in Kufchof, by Tfilas Kalim, neither in Reish Aleph and Dira Makos, neither in Kuf Nun Tes and Natilas Yadayim, there is no Taz. And the Divrei Emes also quotes the Taz. To me it is clear that is a mistake of the Bocha Zetzer, of a printer. Levush an Yoredeya is Ateres Zahav. So the Chasam Soifer and the Divrei Emes wrote in their writings, in their tshuvas, Ataz, Ayin Ted Zayin. And what they meant is the Levush that I quoted before, Ateres Zahav. And then the printer wasn't familiar what is Ateres Zahav, and therefore he just rammed the ayin and wrote Taz. That is what he imagined. And he didn't learn the sugya. And that is how we find Taz. There is no Taz. It is Ateres Zahav, the Levush. But as I said, Alocha Lamaisa, we assume, we maintain, Mem Sos Menatoir, and therefore we're not Mekel Besveikis. 3 times in Shas, Rosh Hashanah Yud Gimel Ksubes Kuv Dalad Omed Aleph Menochos Kuv Gimel Omed Beis. The Gemara says, Kol Midas Chachomim Keinu, Arbaam So Metaharin, Arbaam So Chosakortov Einam Metaharin. Kebeitze Soichlin Metame Tu Mesoichlin, Kebeitze Chosasumsum Einoi Metame. Sholosh Sholosh Tfochim Beged Metame Tu Mesmedres, Chosa Nima Achas, 1 thread is missing, Einoi Metame Medes. Kol Midas Chachomim Kachem. So what Chazal are conveying is a shiur must be 100% accurate. And if there's anything missing from that shiur, you're not yoitza. Ein tumah, ein tahara. So when you go to a shop and you buy something and there's 1 drop of a gram missing, you don't go to complain, you don't go to court, you don't go to the police. But in Shiurei Torah, Chosa Kortov Eino Metaher, Chosa Sumsum Eino Metame Tumesoichlan, Chosa Nima Achas Ein Tumesmedes. And then the question is, when Chazal say Arbaam So Chosa Kortov, is it Dafka Kortov? If it's less than a Kortov, is it a Mikvah Ksheira? This is a discussion. Toises Rosh Hashanah Yud Gimel Madarav clearly say Chosa Kortov Lav Dafka. Chazal say quarter is a very, very small minimal measurement. But even if it's a half a quarter or a tenth of a quarter, anything that is missing from Memsa, Ein HaMikvah Mitaheres. Beis Yosef says, quotes a Tashbitz Avi Echod HaMechabrim, that Shiur Kortov is Mishkal Dinar. And if it's less than a Kortov, the Mikvah is Mitaher. And the Beis Yosef disagrees. Who is that Mechaber? Tashbitz Chelek Aleph Yud Zayin brings it from the Rambam. And this is strange, that the Rambam, that the Beis Yosef would describe the Rambam Echod HaMechabrim without mentioning his name. The Beis Yosef is the Rambam's biggest chosid. And the Beis Yosef always follows the footsteps of the Rambam. B'Shem Echod HaMechabrim. That's strange. Lani is daiti. But I'm just coming to explain Toises and the Beis Yosef and the Shak and Sif Kotten Gimel. The Rambam has nothing to do with this question. It's true that Rambam writes not once, but twice in Hilchos Makos that Shiur Kortov is Mishkal Dina. Tashbitz quotes one Rambam, but it's actually twice. The Rambam is Perek Halocha Aleph and Perek Zayin Halocha Yud. However, the Rambam in these two sources speaks about two different halachas. Two different halachas, and in both of them in the Mishnah we find Kortov. Perek Hey, what are we dealing with? A mikveh, as long as it doesn't have mem sok sheire megishomem is nifsal b'shloish ulug mayim she'uvim. And there's a discussion in the Mishnah. Perek Gimel Masechet Mikvos. Those shloish ulugan need to fall into the mikveh b'vasachas or b'zechazeh. And the Mishnah says, Im darko the rabbis afilu b'zechazeh afilu nofel kortov. So in that Mishnah we find kortov. And the Rambam quotes that halacha, and he writes, Kortov is mishkal dinar. The other Rambam, Perek Zayin Halacha Yud, deals with another Mishnah. And that is the Mishnah Perek Zayin, Hilchos Mikvos. Shloish Elugim Mayim Shuvim V'nufel L'toichen, Kortov Shel Yayin V'shinu Mar'eihen. So there are two Mishnayos in which there is a din of Kortov. And in both these halachas, the Rambam writes mishkal dinar. However, the Rambam doesn't deal with the halacha of mem su chosa kortov. Well, and he is daiti regarding this halacha. No one would say kortov dafka. Everybody would agree kortov lav dafka. And kortov, regarding this Mishnah, doesn't mean a mishkal dinar. Lo ke divrei atashbitz. I think this is clear because the Gemara speaks generally about shiurim. Kol midos chachomim kachem. And the Gemara brings three examples. Memsa is only the first. The second is tumasoichel b'kebeitza. Beitza chosa sumsum. Would one say if it's a half a sumsum there is tumasoichel? Beged al beged, beged sholosh al sholosh chosanima. And if it's lacking a half of a thread, not an entire thread, the din would be different. L'choretza milsa de pshita. These are just examples. And the Rambam and the Gemara uses chosanima, chosa sumsum, chosa kortov, because these we need to relate to something. And these are minimum, shema minimum. But Shiur Kortov, regarding this halacha, it is clear, even the Rambam would agree, Kortov lav dafka. Ukediv Rabbi Sois, ukediv Ashach. Rabbeinu Ovadia also writes, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Yud, Kortov has a shiur. Chelek Mesamach Dalet Belug. And the Tosfos Yom Tov brings the Rambam and the Beis Yosef, and the Tosfos Yom Tov says Chochamot of Menovi. The Beis Yosef was machaven to a Tosfos and Roshon. I quoted that Tosfos before, but once again, Lani is daiti. Regarding this halacha, everybody would agree. Kortov lav dafka. One more interesting question. Ikar ha'halacha mem soz min haTorah, like I said before. Is mem so the only shiur, or there's a duality to shiurim? Oig melach habasham. Mem so would cover up to his knees. What type of a mikveh does he need? That's a machlokes between the Turei Even and Rabbi Frankel. Turei Even, Chagigi Udanov says, I quoted the Lashon of the Gemara at the beginning of this year. Mayim shekol gufoy oilo behem vekama hen amolamo berum shul shamis shiru chachamim arba'am so. According to the Turei Even, it's either arba'am so or mayim shekol gufoy oilo behem. And a giant, oig melach haboshen, Gulliver, a giant needs more than arba'am so. He needs as much as it takes to cover his body. Rabbi Frankel disagrees. Rabbi Frankel says the shiur mikveh is always arba'am so. And if arba'am so is not enough to cover his body, that's a technical problem. And the solution to this problem is mayim she'uvim, she'enam ksherim. Because the din is, once a mikveh has arba'am so, you could put as much mayim she'uvin as you wish, and the mikveh is not nifsal. So according to the Turei Even, Noig Melech HaBoshen would need 100 or 200 or 300 so of Mayim Kshomim, Mayim Ksherem LeMikvah. Because according to the Turei Oven, Memso is the shear for most people. But for a giant, there's an other shear. And that shear is Mayim Shekol Gufay Oilem Bohem. And that is the shear. And therefore you need Mayim Ksherem, Megishomim, as much as it takes to cover his body. Rabbi Frankel says no. Shear Mikveh for everyone is Arba Memso, and not anymore. So what does a giant do? Just a technical problem. You could be Moisef Mayim Shuvim as much as it takes, and as much as is required, Sheyehei Kol Gufay Oila Bohen. Each of these great opinions, Gedolim have partners. Gedulei Tahara is a sefer on Hilchos Mikvah, written 170 years ago by one of the Gedolim in Germany, Reb Mendel Kargo. He was the Rav in Fjorda. And in the beginning of Hilchos Mikvah, Reish Aleph, Sif Koten Gimel, Mashma Medvorav Kedivrei HaTurei Even, and that is also the Aruch HaShulchan, Reish Aleph, Sif Yud. On the other hand, Atzei Broishem, Hilchos Mikvah, Memum Daled, is like Rabbi Frankel. I think Rabbi Frankel is right. Kach Mistava. There is one sheer mikveh, and that is Arba Memso, Loi Poches V'Lo Yoiso. Kol Gufay Oila Behem is a technicality. And to solve the problem of Kol Gufay Oila Behem, you could add on Mayim Shuvim as much as is needed. So let me just once again say that Rambam, at the end of Hilchos Mikvah, that I quoted before, Mehadas, Mala Mesa'odam Mitum Eletahara, the source of Reb Chaim's Kedusha was Mehadas. He was Dovek in Torah with his entire nefesh, Bekol Nimei Nafshay. And that is why Reb Chaim was the Ish Kodesh. And hundreds and thousands just waited in line just for a bracha. Tzaddik Goizav HaKodesh Baruch Hu Mekayim. The source of his Kedusha was his Dvekes in Torah. Mehadas Shemali Mes Nefesh HaOdam, the Kedusha V'Letahara. So once again, Reb Chaim should be a Medes Yosha. Everybody will desperately miss him down here. Up there, Roichev Baravis, Sas V'Sameach, Bevoy Elav Nefesh Nokev V'Tzadik. He should be a Medes Yosha. We should err B'Soyros Toivos, and we should be Zochel Abias Mashiach Tzedkeinu B'Meiru V'Yomeinu Amen.